Hey folks, Mike Shea here from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish. As I've done in weeks past, on Sunday mornings, I like to do my game prep for my Sunday Tomb of Annihilation game. And I like to do it online, so you and I can talk about the way of the Lazy Dungeon Master and how it applies in a practical sense to the game that we're going to run. As I have done in weeks past, I will be going through all of the steps outlined in the book Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, which will be available this fall. Things are moving smoothly. Those of you who backed the Kickstarter, things are very good. I just got the draft picks this morning, about an hour ago, of the final artwork for the main book. So we have 10 pieces of art that are finished. We have 10 that are in draft. Once those are finished, which should be soon, the rest of the book is already in layout, and the book will be coming shortly. So I'm still aiming for fall, but and I will certainly make it by then, but it might even be a little early. We will see. In the meantime, you can watch these videos and see how it works and get an idea of what's going on, and we'll have sneak previews. There's also, today, a special treat. Kittens are around here somewhere. I don't know where they are currently. They're around here, and they'll most likely be involved in our discussions today. If you are on Twitch, please sound off. Let me know everything's coming in smooth. Let me know if the audio is good. And anything you want to talk about in the world of D&D, feel free to talk about. This show usually goes about an hour. It might be a little shorter today because I got started a little later. And I want to actually make it to the game that I plan on running. Audio is working super great. Thank you, Suspiel. Suspelli. Thank you. Acromines says all is fine too. Acromines. Thank you both for coming today. So, as we have done in weeks past, we will take a look at where things went. So last time, in our last session, I have my game notes from the last session here. The party was in Hrackhammer on their way to Wyrmheart Mine. They had gotten rid of all of the fire newts. This, by the way, is full of spoilers for Tomb of Annihilation. So if you are playing in Tomb of Annihilation, you probably want to pass. So the party had gotten rid of all of the fire newts and recovered the forges of Hrackhammer, and they were going to travel down the mining tunnel to get to Wyrmheart Mine and confront Ember, who is a salamander worshiper of Imix, some kind of either priest or warlock or something. I don't even know what they are yet. And Tinder, a young red dragon that they believe Ember is planning to ascend Tinder to godhood, or to become an avatar of Imix. So anyway, the party began their trek. Oh, there was they got we started off with them meeting a Yuan-Ti exploration party. They had some dialogue with them. They knew there was something funky going on, but the party was just like, hey, we're just adventurers from Port Nyanzaru. I, in fact, used the NPC that is a secret spy of the Yuan-Ti in Port Nyanzaru as the head of this troop, and they knew there were 4 of them, but they could only see 3. They saw 4 coming across a bridge, but then only 3 showed up when they went into parley. So they parlayed with them. The group said, hey, we don't want any trouble. If you happen to find we're looking for a crown. If you happen to find a crown, we would like it very much, and we'll make it worth your while. But we'll just leave you be. They could see, like, this is a tense situation, and this group did just wipe out an entire mine full of fire newts. So they're like, we're going to take a walk. So they left, but they left one of them behind, a Type 2 Yuan-Ti Malison, the kind with a serpent head. And the group was then trying to flush out this Yuan-Ti, and they did so. And the Yuan-Ti tried to escape by jumping over a bridge, made a terrible athletics check, didn't make it over. The group flew over using a power of a weapon that they have, and captured the Yuan-Ti. The Yuan-Ti then saw Ogechi, one of the characters, who has like a tie to the Eshowdow and to the Eshowdow, which is this shadow giant. This isn't actually in the book, but it is part of Omu lore. And there was essentially one of the tribes of Omu was known as the Eshow, and they were at a war with Mesro, and they were losing, so they summoned a shadow giant called the Eshowdow to destroy Mesro, and it somehow turned around and ended up destroying or attacking the Eshow. Then supposedly it went away, but then that's when the Mesro, the guards of the army of Mesro, led by a general known as Ras Nisi, swept through and destroyed all of the Eshow. So one of our characters, however, has this tie to the Eshow. It's like his warlock patron. And the Yuan-Ti can sense it. The Yuan-Ti can see that he's tied to the Eshow. They tried to kidnap him because they figure he is like a key to opening a gate that can release the World Serpent, or can release Dendar the Night Serpent. They think he's got, like, it's only this shadow magic. Somehow the Eshowdow is tied to opening this door. So they've been trying to grab him up. What did they do? So they tried to grab him up. The Yuan-Ti Malison saw him and said, "Wow, you're tied to the Eshow. You know, you're the one that's going to open the gates," and told him about the gates and told him all this stuff. And he's like, "Wow." And then he said, "You know, I've failed in my mission, but if I could be killed by you, if I could be killed by the very hand that is going to open the doors to release the Night Serpent, that's a good death for me." And then one of the other characters killed him instead. And he's like, "No, that's terrible." They didn't like the guy. So then they made their way down the tunnels. Because they just fought a bunch of Yuan-Ti, I didn't do the thing with the Yuan-Ti Revenant that I was considering. And instead I had them fight carrion crawlers out of a giant skull that was sort of hanging out in the middle of the thing. That was fun. They rode in, and what I didn't realize about Wyrmheart Mine is that when you ride in on the mining track from the other place, you're on the bottom floor already, and that's exactly where everything happens. So, yeah, I felt kind of bad for the Yuan-Ti. So they went inside, and then they're trying to stealth around, but they failed, and basically all of the kobolds piled down on them. It was like 35 kobolds, and so they're surrounded by kobolds, some flying, some on land. The kobolds are continually like getting routed and then coming back again, because, like, you know, I think there was a kobold sorcerer. They bluffed them. I think they said, like, "Hey, we're here with the, you know, all this metal that you need in order to ascend Tinder." And this kobold sorcerer like walks up and he's like, "This doesn't make any sense, and where's everyone else?" At which point the rogue backstabs the sorcerer, kills him in one shot, and then all the kobolds freak out, and half of them run away and half of them stand their ground. And then there's this great big fight, and then as part of the fight a couple of salamanders came out, so they're fighting like 30 kobolds and a couple of salamanders. That was a really rough fight, even though they're just kobolds. They only have like 6 hit points or whatever. You know, enough hits were getting in, and the group is level 7 at this point. They're going to be level 8 when they finish this thing. They keep asking, "Are we level yet?" And I've been slowing down their level because I don't want them to get to Omu and everything and be too high. And I think 8 is about as, you know, it's as high as you can go and still be challenged by that area. So they fought the salamanders, they fought the kobolds, and now they are in sub-level 2 here. If you look at the map below, down there, sub-level 2... is where they are, and this little room down here in the lower right corner, that's going to be where there's a rift to the elemental plane of fire, and that's where Ember is working on his thing. And I believe Tinder is out flying around right now, but a winged kobold flew out and is going to warn Tinder. So Tinder will be on his way back, or her way back. I don't know if Tinder's a male or female. Tinder will be on their way back around the time that the party is dealing with Ember, which could be very interesting. And that will be, I think, part of our big discussion today, is exactly how that can play out. What are all the different ways that they can play out? I think it would be bad if the party is facing Ember and Tinder, you know, and any other remaining salamanders that Ember has at the same time. I think 3 salamanders is about right. They're CR5. They're pretty tough. So people have asked, first of all, so where's this overlay come from? I always get these questions. The overlay came from Eric Vulgaris on Twitter. He's an excellent guy. I met him through Grant Ellis, and he made this layout. And what text editor am I using is always a question, and the answer is Sublime, and you can Google it. Who are the characters? So these go through the steps of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Let's rapidly go through the steps. For those of you who have been watching this video before, this will not be new, but it always helps to kind of reconfirm and, if you have them all memorized by now, you are ahead of the game. This, by the way, is the layout for Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. I hope you like it. It will soon have art for all the places. The steps are start by reviewing the characters. This way we get them into our head, and we are thinking about our characters while we're considering the rest of the game. That's where things like figuring out that the Yuan-ti are actually sort of in reverence to Ogechi comes from something like that. Our characters for this session, well, we will go back. Let's go through this list. Create a strong start. Where is the game going to start, and what interesting thing will occur that sort of draws the players into the game? What gets them excited about the fact that they're playing D&D right now? What potential scenes might occur? This is when we're not really sure where things are going to head after this. It's always good to have a loose list of, we think this might happen and that might happen and that might happen. They don't have to happen, and we shouldn't spend a lot of time on these because our plan is probably going to fall off the rails as soon as the game gets started. People are like, oh, you know what I want to do? Let's go back to Port Nyanzaru. Let's return to our other thing. And then you're like, okay. And then you throw your list of scenes out. The scenes are just to make you feel comfortable that you have enough. A lot of the way of Lazy Dungeon Master, and this is something I've been talking about on Twitter a lot this week, is what builds confidence to run D&D games. Where do people get their confidence from? Really interesting results that came from that. I've analyzed about 200 tweets about that and posted the results on Twitter. You can see it on my Twitter account. A lot of it comes to the reason why I have the confidence to run D&D is no one else will, and another one is because I have great friends and family who are very supportive. So if you want to run a D&D game, surround yourself with people that you trust who won't make fun of you and that you won't be nervous running a D&D game for. Outline potential scenes. So again, this is just to make us feel comfortable. Secrets and clues. This to me is next to the strong start, probably the most important thing to outline. This is what characters can discover during the game. We don't know where they'll discover it or how they'll discover it, but these are things that are interesting. This is the exploration part of D&D. What will they figure out while they're playing? Fantastic locations. What places will they visit and what makes them interesting? What important NPCs do we need to keep in mind? Oh, I wish that little bar would go away. Why does that bar not go away? Go away, bar. That thing is so weird. There it goes. Outline of... Oh, son of a gun. So, I guess it goes away in time, and don't highlight the bar up top. Lesson learned. Other important NPCs. If you have some, this is a good place to put them. You don't need them, and I tend to improvise a lot of NPCs, and I think a lot of people improvise NPCs. Some people plan out a whole bunch and then they never come up. So the key is you really only want the ones that you have to remember, like who's with them right now, and how do I bring that in? Choose relevant monsters. What monsters are they going to face? It helps to here's kind of another trick, which is when you have certain monsters that you're going to run in a game, and we can think a lot about how they're going to run and stuff. But I think it really helps, and I did this with my Wednesday game, just reading the monster stat block. And not the stat block, but the flavor text, the description of the monster. It gives ideas about how this thing is going to interact and where they came from and what they want. So when the party is facing or meeting Aarakocra, knowing that they're trying to find the Rod of Seven Parts, knowing that they're at war with the elemental plane of air, with Yansiben and the cultists of the elemental plane of air, and knowing that they, knowing who they worship, the I forget what they're called, like the seven air princes or something like that. That is valuable, and that can become kind of secrets and clues. So that idea of drawing in, reading the lore about the monsters you're going to run, I think can be a big help. So reading through the Book of Monsters can give you the fuel to choose the right ones. Select magic items. If you have magic items matter to players a lot, but they don't tend to matter to DMs as much. So what magic items might they discover? And asking the question, what magic items do they have right now? Is anybody missing something that they kind of want? Is an opportunity to keep in mind. So of these are 8 steps, but of these 8 steps, really only about 3 of them are required. And obviously we all have our own way that we run our game. So what's required to you might be different than me. But I know what I feel are really strong is reviewing the characters, which really just means reading through the list and just kind of putting them in your head. Oh yeah, that's right. Having the strong start, and then defining secrets and clues. Usually if I have those, I can kind of do the rest. But today we're going to walk through the whole rest of it too. I've been ignoring chat. What's going on? Do you have trouble remembering voices? Yes, I have trouble. The question from B.E. Frank was, do you have trouble remembering voices for the characters, or does writing down the fiction archetypes usually help enough? Usually the archetype helps a lot, but honestly, sometimes I just forget, and my players are pretty, I play it loose. I'm not Matt Mercer running a game in front of a million people, right? I've got 5-6 people in front of me. We're all just having a good time. And if I don't quite remember the voice, that's fine. And half the time they don't remember either. So is it important? I mean, if it's important to you, it's important to you. And you can jot down a little note next to a particular NPC. But I often come up with them off the top of my head. I don't really think about it ahead of time. I had a really interesting one. I had a few interesting ones at a Wednesday game recently. I'll never remember what they were, but it was kind of, they all just kind of came to me, including a Iblis, which is like a stork creature that comes from evil souls of evil humanoids. And there was like an Iblis that basically told on the party when the party had screwed with something they shouldn't have been screwing with. And the interaction between the Iblis and the Iblis and the character was very funny, but it was all like clicks and whirs and hissing and stuff. And so that was fun. Sometimes a voice isn't necessarily actual dialogue. A voice is just like... B.E. Frank says, I have trouble watching Critical Role. It's so cool and great, but NPC and PC interaction just isn't my bag. Yeah, for some it's great. For some it's not. My wife and I love it. We've been watching, I think we're on episode 16 now. We watch it for dinner and breakfast, and I'm enjoying it a lot. And I sort of love the curveballs that go in there. Like, one of the characters is known by a completely different name and has this whole history that none of you knows about. That's kind of fun. Navy DM says, sometimes it's fun to throw an accent in there that throws people off. Minnesota, Wisconsin area for dwarves I find is particularly fun. That's pretty great. There's actually a world, and Matt Mercer talked about this when I had him on the DM Deep Dive. There is a world accent database you can find. If you Google Matt Mercer, hang on, I'll go find it. Hey, somebody in chat, if you want to Google Matt Mercer DM Deep Dive, and then in the Sly Flourish article about it, there's a link to this accent database. And it's really cool to be able to click on an area of the world and they speak in their accent, speaking English words. And you can practice an area. There we are. See? Thank you, Navy DM. That is awesome. The Dialects Archive. Oh, you people are great. That's pretty funny. Can't use American accents since it DMs in Finnish. That is great. Navy's on the ball. So that is a great database for doing accents. I'm lazy. I'm a very lazy DM, and I tend not to look at the stuff. But every so often, I'll it's a good fun prep thing to do, particularly if you want to get better with voices, hearing different dialects. Just be careful with stereotypes, right? Try to mix up the dialects and the races and classes or the races of creatures, so you're not just stereotyping folks. All right, back to our game, because I actually have to run a game today. And I have no idea what I'm doing. So, looking at our characters, we have Smoke, the Tabaxi Ranger, rogue. Not about a backstory. I keep meaning to ask. Really shouldn't. Let's go back. Sorry. I could have some fun with that. Gabriel Tharmond. This is the Asimar who died and is resurrected with a different soul. That one's kind of fun. Punchy, the Kenku Samurai who wants to fly, actually did fly as he flew and captured that Yuanti before. So his thing can fly now, so maybe he will fly again today, chasing the dragon. B. Frank says, my friends want to experience Curse of Strahd. I know you've written a bunch about it, so I'm going to read up on that experience. Yes, I love Curse of Strahd. It's my favorite D&D adventure, and I believe in the survey, the somewhat flawed survey I did, most people believed it to be the best of the published adventures. And I think that's true. It's my second favorite adventure. Tomb of Annihilation is great too. I really like Tomb. Strahd, the one thing that Strahd has that Tomb doesn't is a really great intro adventure, which is Death House. And I love that first level haunted house is such a great way to get people started in Ravenloft. Warryn is our gnome druid who wants to be the biggest beast and is going to be getting polymorph soon. And when he gets polymorph, he can turn into even tremendous beasts like Tyrannosauruses and stuff. And we have Ogechi, the Shadow Magic, with a Warlock tied, and the Shadow Magic human sorcerer Warlock tied to the Eshowdow. And then Huitzillin, the Paladin of Ubtao, who's the righteous of the group. So those are the characters. So the strong start, they just wiped out. In times past, and I think in the last episode, last time I did this show, we talked about like what external event can kind of shake everything up. And we thought about an earthquake, and I think that's where I came up with the Yuanti showing up. I don't know that I'm going to have one in this one because they just wiped out a whole bunch of kobolds. They're sitting there. They're in rough shape. You know, they I don't know. So I think actually the strong start for this, and if I remember, let's see, I yanked it from this list, but last time we had talked about a kobold, the kobold cleaner, Rhesk Wyrmbait. And I think we're going to bring Rhesk in now. So the strong start will be... So a kobold will be coming running around the corner, huffing and puffing, carrying a big bucket full of water and like a mop. And he'll look and he'll be like, uh-oh. And what could he be bringing? What is it that they need to conduct their ritual? What could he be bringing to Ember to help them conduct the ritual to transform Tinder into an avatar of Imix? It wouldn't be molten metal. It could be just metal, right? He could be bringing more iron. Oh, huge shackles. What about huge shackles, right? And the goal is that they're going to have to put the shackles on. They have like this giant sacrificial area to, yeah, transform Tinder. Swipe right. My group has had that joke. Why is that? Huh. So, bringing huge shackles, I think would be good. So that will be, and then like, you know, what they do with the shackles, and then he'll be like, yeah, you know, Ember asked for these. But the kobold doesn't necessarily know what's going on, but he said, we're going to need these huge shackles. And what Ember is going to say to Tinder is, the ritual is painful, so we're going to have to shackle you down or you'll screw up the ritual. But really, it's just to trap him while they sacrifice. They're going to kill Tinder and then transform him into this, like, you know, volcano dragon, an avatar of Imix. So I think that will be a fun thing, and they can decide there. They really need a rest, but I don't know if they're going to get it. Yeah, it could be pretty rough on them if they burned a lot in that first scene, but we'll see. Maybe they'll have an opportunity to spend a hit die or something, but I don't know. Have a strong start is such a good concept to remember. Way too often my sessions start with, you're in a tavern. Exactly. Suspelli, this is, the strong start is really it's the only part of the game that DMs control, really. It's the only part where, you know, where the game begins, we can figure out. Almost all the rest of it, we really have no idea. We have 6 personalities that are going to be pushing in different directions. So coming up, like, a lot of time we spend so much time on like the thread of the adventure and step A to step C and all of this stuff. The reality is the only one that we're really going to know is the start. And it's also the thing that kind of gets past when it is, for me anyway, a huge confidence boost to know that when I'm standing there and people are staring at me, you know, like, when's your game? Well, you know, we're ready to play D&D. What's going on? And you're like, you know, you're standing there, you know, soaked in kobold blood, 2 dead salamanders, their molten skin melting through the rock around, and you hear a huffing and puffing coming from a cave, and around comes with a big cart a kobold, and he's wielding this huge cart, and you see these big iron bands in the cart, and he looks at you, and you look at him, and he looks around. What do you do? Right? It could be, we put an arrow on his head, and you're like, shunk. Okay, he falls over dead. Or it could be, let's talk to this guy. So yeah, the strong start is the only area where we have any control, which is why it's worth spending time. It's why it's step 2. And it's why it's one of the ones that I think is really critical for the game. So what scenes are going to take place? So meeting Rhesk. And again, that meeting could include an arrow in the head. We have Confronting Ember in the Molten Chamber. Maybe I'll bring some Dwarven Forge today. I have a big bag of Dwarven Forge I could bring. Maybe. To set up a big chamber. That'd be kind of cool. People would like that. I don't know if I'm going to have time, though. I have half an hour before I have to go. I'm not going to set up a Dwarven Forge thing. That's a bummer. I also don't have a great red dragon. I have a huge red dragon mini. I don't have a young red dragon mini, which is too bad. Confronting Ember. Tinder returns. The Wyrmheart. I don't think that's what it's actually called, right? The Fireheart. Fireheart. And then they continue on their journey, and maybe they find their way to the other. Let's see. Let's close this here. Whoops. Pink. The Wreck of the Star Goddess. That's probably what's next. And then onward to Omu. That is definitely more than what will fill a 3-hour session. My sessions, by the way, are about 3 hours long. Some people have much longer sessions, in which case you have to prep a little bit more. No kitties. I don't know where the kitties are. You'd think they're camera shy. I didn't promise kitties, but I said there might be. All right, now secrets and clues. This is important. Ember plans to transform Tinder. Am I on the right screen? Everybody got it? We're all seeing everything? Cool. Yep. All right. Let's go back to, so we know where we're at. Ember plans to transform Tinder into an avatar of Imix. This transformation will kill Tinder. No, it will kill them. All right, I give up. Whoops. Stop it. How do I get out of here? I gotta find Tinder's gender. Female. All right. What else? 3 hours breaks my brain. Has to be 2 or 4 hours so we can allocate time correctly via Adventurers League rules. I am sorry about your Adventurers League rules. There's a reason why I run hardback adventures and I run with the same group, and that's so that we can have 3-hour games and I don't really have to worry about where it ends. The whole idea of getting a game to perfectly fit in a session like that, especially with strangers and with an unknown number of players, man, it's harder than I'm willing to deal with. So, good on you. But what I did find, and this has worked, is if you so I play with a bunch of people. Many of them are Adventurers League players, and the way I did it is I went to the Adventurers League thing and said I want to run an Adventurers League game, and I want to run it with, but I want to run it continuous, and I'd like to have a consistent set of players rather than everything else. And I got a group, and they're great. So that's it's one way to do it. Now, of course, this game is not truly Adventurers League because I'm changing a whole lot, but I'm not really changing that much. I don't know. Don't get me started on Adventurers League rules. We'll see how they change. The whole idea that I can't throw in some salamanders when I want to throw in some salamanders, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're breaking the immersion." Come on, give me a break. As long as I don't hand them all Vorpal swords and then they show up at another table with Vorpal swords. Although I hear some craziness, like a friend of mine plays Adventurers League, and she said a level 2 character showed up with a shield guardian, right, that they got from this adventure. So the idea that it'd be really terrible if DMs inserted stuff in without control of the Adventurers League. There's so much broken stuff in Adventurers League already. It's crazy. How does AL allocate time for something pre-written? Most of the adventures, be frank, most of the adventures for Adventurers League are they're designed for either 2 or 4 hours. There's many 2-hour adventures and there's many 4-hour adventures, and they are self-contained one-shot adventures. Sometimes they're part of a series, but even within the series, it's like oh god, I just banged my mic. Sorry. even within a series, they are, yeah, even within a Xand4, what I heard is you can't really just add whatever monsters you want. You know, if I decided I'm replacing Tinder and I'm going to add in a, you know, I don't know, fire primordial, then they'd be like, but I don't know. I don't ask. I ask forgiveness instead of permission. But yeah, honestly, as soon as I start to put in my own magic items, that's when I say, okay, your character's not really legal at another table. They are pieces of a series. You can go to dmsguild.com and you can see all the list of the Adventurers League adventures. Some of them are really great. And like, you know, they have a lot of authors that write exclusively for that sort of thing. Sean Merwin is probably the most popular of them. But many friends of mine, Teo Sabadia and James and Casso, have written them. And now they have these whole DM Guild Adept adventures, which are also AL legal. So, yeah. AL has a lot of limits on the creativity of a DM, but that's understandable. It's not as understandable. I don't understand a lot of it. I think they could be a lot freer. My problem with organized play is the organized part. And it's like the number one thing should be getting DMs in front of players and players in front of a DM to play D&D. And anything else should be removing barriers to that. And when you tell a DM, like, you don't have the authority to... And I've seen many DMs who feel that they have even less authority than they actually do. To turn a, to kind of tune an adventure around the players and around the characters. But yeah, again, whole different topic. I like Adventurers League. I'm very happy that they do it. I think they've got some great people that work on it. Lisa Chen, who is their new community manager, is outstanding. I met her at Origins. She and I had great talks. I'm planning to have her on the DM Deep Dive to talk more about it. And they are making big changes to it this fall, I guess around or during Gen Con. And I hope that stuff will help. But I would love to see less. I'd love to see them give a lot more authority to DMs to be able to tweak stuff. And I think they kind of do. So they have, be frank, they have seasons, and the seasons are thematically tied to the hardback adventures. So they had a whole bunch of Omu adventures for Tomb of Annihilation. And then they had a whole bunch of adventures. One of the ones I wrote was for Ravenloft, and I wrote another one for, I guess it was Prince of the Apocalypse. And they had, but they're all thematically tied. They're not direct tie-ins. They're more like they're in the area, or they're involving things that are involved in the hardcovers. You can play a hardback as written in Adventurers League. The hardback adventures are AL legal fully. So, Tomb of Annihilation is a Adventurers League adventure, and you can run it through. You just can't change it as much as I'm changing it, which I think is a shame, because I changed a whole lot. And I did it for Ravenloft too. I changed all my adventures, which is why I tend to be very loose with whether or not I'm AL legal or not. All right, so what secrets and clues can the characters uncover? We got to finish. We got things to do. What other secrets and clues? So, the dwarves caused the rift. Can... Elemental. So they can make a fire thing. They can either make fire armor or fire weapon or fire wand, probably. So I think they can do any kind of weapon, right? And it'll essentially turn it into the equivalent of a flame tongue. I'm probably going to remove the flame tongue from later on in the adventure. But that can work. What else? I think we already talked about how the dwarves, let's see. It's the idea that, like, Tinder flushed the dwarves out. It won't be true. It turns out a Sararak commissioned them and then kidnapped them. Much of the material mined at Wyrmheart is used to build the Tomb of the Nine Gods. I think that's a nice clue. Ooh. I keep saying Omu when I mean Chult. The adventures are not Omu adventures; they're Chult adventures. Xan4 says, I don't think you can run Curse of Strahd as written for AL. You can. Many people have. If you run Curse of Strahd as written, it is AL legal. Yeah, I know a lot of people who did. Asarak used a portal to connect Omu and Wyrmheart. The portal is now dead. Let's see what else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8. I need 2 more secrets and clues. What other secrets and clues can they learn about this? Omu's protected by the by sky. But Omu's sky is protected by hideous, powerful gargoyles. I heard a sniff. There's Kitty. Oh. The cats are sleeping. That's where they are. Hello, sleepy kitties. You guys sleeping? I didn't know where you were. They're sleeping. One's sleeping on top of the other one. They are so cute. Come here. Says, nope, we're sleeping. No kitties. Kitties are sleeping on the bed. They're so cute. They're lying on top of one another. But one of them's got a cold, which is why we have them. They came in from another shelter. We foster. So we're fostering kittens. And we had 3 kittens before, and then they went away and all got adopted, and now we have 2, and they're yeah, Xan4, I do recall that there was a whole bunch of kind of how to get experience. Hey, Tilda DeWilda, right? I get that right? People still did it. I don't know how. They probably just cheated. It just gave more experience. I have a feeling that'll be much easier when the new rules come out. When you can do more wild, when you can do more like by hour, by hour of adventure, you earn enough experience. In some cases, you might rip through an adventure quickly. Tomb of Annihilation, boy, if we did it by hour, characters would be like level 16 by now. I've been running this almost a year because I love delving through the jungle. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more. I need one more secret and clue. What else can they learn? Oh. Kobolds help maintain Omu, right? I think there's kobolds. I don't think there's kobolds in the Tomb of the Nine Gods, but I know that there's a group of kobolds who knows about Omu. And there's the robed one, who is a Sarak. Evil John says, I just started Tomb of Annihilation yesterday. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly so I can jump into the Mad Mage as soon as possible. That is certainly a good way to go. Probably the easiest way to run through it is to skip the hex crawling travel and do travel montages, describe what happens, or have the party describe what happens, and sort of hit the highlights. You're missing a lot though, because it's a fun. Like I've been enjoying it thoroughly, and like I feel like I'm not even halfway through it because I haven't even gotten to Omu. But I have a feeling once they get to Omu, it'll be quicker. What fantastic locations will they explore? Well, we already have a whole bunch, but let's take a look at. Let's see. Tomb of Annihilation monuments. Lost monuments of Chult. Obsidian watery tree of Unk the flail snail. This, by the way, I'll put this in the chat. These are randomly generated fantastic locations of Chult. Gore-covered diseased pillar of Dendar the Night Serpent. Wow. Ancient frosty statue of Ras Nisi. Sunken psychic pool of Ubtao. That sounds cool. The pool of Ubtao. I think we're going to have that one as a place. Cracked arcane tomb of Ubtao. Could kind of mix these two together. This might be a fun one for our Ubtao Paladin. Evil John, the other thing you could do is just start him high level and start him at Omu. You know, skip, the whole lot. I mean, you're missing, I don't know. It's totally up to you, but that obviously half the book goes away. So there's a couple of interesting places. I like the idea that there's a tomb in the center of a big pool, and like only a chosen of Ubtao can walk through the pool and get to the tomb, and maybe there's something there. Man, I'd love to give the guy a Holy Avenger. How powerful are Holy Avengers? I've never given one away. It's a +3 sword. Fiend or undead with it takes 2d10 radiant damage. Wow. You and all creatures friendly to you have in the aura have an advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects. Wow. That weapon is pretty badass. I might give him the equivalent of a Holy Avenger, a weapon of Ubtao, but it'll grow with him, and as he gains in power, it will grow in power. So maybe it's a +1 weapon that can inflict radiant damage when it starts, and then once per day can add like 2d6 radiant damage. But then, it grows. Well, I just saw a cat go by. Oh, here's a kitty. Come here, kitty. Come here, everybody wants to see you. Yoink. Here's our kitty. Let's see, I gotta see if I get on the camera. Here's a kitty. Oh, say hello to people on Twitch. Hello, people on Twitch. Just a little small one. Yeah. Oh, here's the other. Well, you want attention now too? Yoink. This one's Pumpkin. Pumpkin's a big purr. Oh, I love purring. Oh, yeah, I like that. Oh, I love being on Twitch. Oh, yes. I love lazy game prep. This one's about 2 pounds. The other one's about 1 pound. And they love each other. They fight and play all the time. I have a towel on my lap. I'm wearing shorts, and I have to put a towel on my lap because they will climb up my bare legs. And I have deep scratches where they literally didn't just claw my leg, but climbed up my leg. And it hurt. Magic items. The Fireheart. And the War Club of Ubtao, right? Like some kind of stone war club. Oh, what was Michelle saying? Michelle says incoming. That means I have coffee on the way. What monsters do they face? I don't know what kind of do I want the Ember? Is Ember a warlock of Imix? Or a priest of Imix? A priest would be kind of cool. I think we'll do a priest. That way he can do spirit, a fiery version of Spirit Warriors. What is it called? And a fiery weapon that he can attack from afar. So that'll make him pretty tough. And maxed out hit points. It's always funny. So whenever I'm going through the list of lazy dungeon master techniques, the hardest part by far, the secrets and clues. And fantastical occasions can be too if you're not, if you don't already have some in a published adventure. Like there's so many in published adventure, that you tend not to want you don't really need extra ones. But and then the random components. This is something that I've thought a lot about. I do a lot of random generators, and MT Black, the author from the DMs Guild, a very popular author in DMs Guild, talks about how he uses randomness to help him generate ideas for adventures. And I think the whole idea of adding a random component. I'm kind of a data science and computer science nerd, and getting into artificial intelligence stuff. And one of the interesting things about artificial intelligence is how much it uses randomness as a way to help computers learn things. It sort of randomly tries stuff and then sees which of it works. And that idea of randomness as a function of creativity, I think, is really fascinating. And that's why I think having a lot of random generators there are good tools for DMs. Not necessarily that you use them without any editing on your part, but they give you ideas that you may not otherwise come up with. So, don't think of random encounters or random generators as like, I have to suffer with whatever comes out of the result. But use it to help influence you to come up with things you wouldn't have already come up with. I find that to me is the game of the D&D game for the DM, is that idea of, I don't know what's going to happen next either. And it's kind of fun to take things that are random. And there's a cat right down below me. She's sleeping on the towel that I put down to protect my legs. So randomness, I think, is a really powerful tool. What else? So I think we're pretty set. We've got items. I've got some NPCs. So Rhesk Wyrmbait is the kobold cleaner. I don't know. That Suitseeker, I think he left. I don't know where Suitseeker is. The ghost of Eris Firebeard. There might be a ghost wandering around. I think there's other rooms in... Oh, big mosquito. There are other rooms where there are specters in Wyrmheart Mine, so the idea that they might run into a dwarven ghost who can tell them a little bit more would also be kind of cool, and maybe fight some specters. So those are the notes. Anybody else have any questions about this process? What seems to be missing? There was a lot of interesting talk. So this week I started off early in the week kind of saying like, what are the hard, I'm kind of between projects at the moment. I'm waiting for things for Lazy Dungeon Master, so I'm not really directly doing stuff with that right now. And I don't yet want to start a new big project. So I'm kind of just, sitting back and sort of thinking about the hobby overall. And I had the question of like, what were the hard parts of D&D for new DMs? And that came back with some interesting results. So I asked on Twitter, I said, for new DMs, what are the things that you found to be most difficult? And the top ones were understanding the rules, finding a group. What else? Confidence was on there, but it was actually lower, but it was one of the ones that I thought was more interesting. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's see. I have to go back to my old. Let's see. I got my own feed here because I posted about it. Here we go. Prep. So the idea that like, okay, I was glad to see that one of the things that people are struggling with the most is over prepping, under prepping, not knowing how to prep. So I'm like, oh, good. I've got 2 books coming out and 1 book that's out now that really hit on this topic. So that's good. Finding players is a real tough one. And I wrote an article for D&D Beyond and reposted it on Sly Flourish with their permission, an article about how to find players, how to find and maintain a good D&D group, which is really hard, and no article is going to solve it, but at least we can aim in the right direction. And I did a fair bit of research on that too, kind of asking people how they found groups and where they went, and I got a lot of really good feedback about Meetup and Facebook and other things like that. How to improvise. So this is one I want to write about more, on what improvisation is for new DMs as opposed to veteran DMs. And I think for us veteran DMs, we think about improvisation as You know, being able to turn when the game turns and knowing how to make things interesting when they've never existed before, and really being able to think on your feet and that kind of stuff. But I think improvisation for new DMs is like the whole game is improvisation for them, right? Like there's no board, and it's not like if somebody says, I was talking to my wife about it and saying like, in Lost Mine of Phandelver, you know, you start off on a cart being attacked by goblins, and it's like somebody says, "Ooh, I want to flip over the cart," and the DM's like, "I don't know what to do. Like that it doesn't say anything about that they can flip over the cart. Can they flip over?" Because they're thinking like from a board game mentality, right? Where you know you can only do the things that it says you can do, and getting past that idea of like, oh, okay, so everything is, you know, does it make sense, and if it does, then what's the difficulty class? You know, that takes a bit. There's a bit of a leap there to get to that point where you're like, okay, they can do pretty much whatever they want to do, and if it's challenging, I come up with a difficulty class for it. And that's, you know, but that's kind of the whole interaction with the game is that. So it's easy for us vets to forget that is even a consideration because we've been playing D&D for so long. But I think for new players that's a bit of a leap. So it might be, you know, I think I'm going to explore that a little bit more. Managing expectations and confidence were another one. And confidence I dug into even more to say, like, how do people, you know, where do people find confidence to run D&D? And I think I already talked about that today. But, you know, some interesting ones there. No other DMs being available, supportive family and friends, practice, the drive to tell a story, watching live play games, which is actually probably higher because Matt Mercer is also here in a separate category. Accepting the ability to make mistakes, learning from good DMs, watching Colville, watching Mercer, and watching poor DMs. You know, those are some interesting ways that people have been able to get the thing done. Anyway, kind of querying Twitter folks kind of showed me that, okay, I am still aiming in the right direction when I write stuff like the Lazy Dungeon Master, because people need help with prep, and the prep helps people build confidence. And, you know, I think that there's a fair bit going on. Suspelli, I'm glad this is inspiring, and I hope you'll give it a try. It's can be a little intimidating if you're used to doing a lot of prep, and then suddenly you realize, like, I'm really just doing very little. You know, I don't know if there's a good training wheel way to do it. Like, do all of your big prep, but also just try this stuff, and then set the big prep aside. If you need it, you have it, but then see if this does it for you, and then slowly. I mean, I literally haven't even thought about my game at all that I'm running in 5 minutes. You know, I'm getting in the car in 5 minutes to go there. I haven't even thought about it until I sat down to do this show. So, you know, it can be done. And I'm not saying, hey, do it like I do it, because I'm doing it great. I did a lot of research into how other people do it too. And, you know, lots of people. I think I mentioned this the last show. I had a nice chance to talk to Chris Perkins about how he prepares for the Acquisitions Incorporated game. And he said he thinks of the strong start, right? And then he says it's off to the races from there. He goes, it's 95% improv. When he's running a game in front of 4,000 people, 95% improv, which amazes me. Like, I don't even do 95% improv, and I got 6 people. Let's see. I'm just going through our chat here. Information presentation is a hurdle. Yeah, David Turner 5 says information presentation is always a hurdle for me when using published sources. I agree. These books have a lot of words. They're big books, and they have lots of words in them, and they're not easy to read. I have gotten great joy recently in just really reading them. But even Tomb of Annihilation, the truth is I haven't read the latter half. I've read Omu, but it was a while ago. Tomb of the Nine Gods, I've skimmed it a couple of times, but I've never read it. So, yeah, you know, information density is hard, and I don't know that they're necessarily designed to really portray the information. I tried to do this in Sly Flourish's Fantastic Adventures. I did a new approach towards writing adventures that are short, like 4-hour adventures that are in 5 pages rather than 30 pages, and outlining up front, like, here are the important things of this adventure that you're going to want to get across, or here's how this adventure can work out, and, you know, then here are the places, and it's designed so that you can just pick it up and go. And I was inspired by that design from a Monty Cook product called Weird Discoveries that they have for Numenera, which was this quick play Numenera adventures. And I'll be doing more with that. I think you know, right now when I think about my next project, I think it's going to be another Fantastic Adventure like product, because I was really happy with how that turned out, and people seemed happy with it too. And I think that there's room for that. What's that? I don't really see Mercer fail at the table very often. You know, I think there's lots to learn from watching Mercer run his games. It's funny because I see a lot of people who are like, I don't know who the hell Matt Mercer is, and I don't know why anybody would want to watch D&D. And I see a lot of people who are like, oh, I love him. I love watching Critical Role, but there's no way I could ever be a good DM like that. And I think both of those are sort of false. I mean, you know, if you don't watch it, that's fine. But lots of people love watching D&D. I love now watching D&D. To me, I was thinking about this, and this will probably be the last thing, and I got to run. It occurs to me that when you think about what D&D is, oh, I know what it was. So I was talking to my stepfather about D&D, and he and my mom started watching Critical Role, and he said, this is like radio drama. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I thought you'd be mad when I referred to it that way. I'm like, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And I was just listening to Stephen King on Dance Macabre talk about radio drama, and that one of the values that radio drama has compared to television is that your mind fills in the blanks. And when we watch people play D&D, just like we were sitting at the table playing D&D, our minds are filling in the blanks, which means it's possible that if, you know, 80% of a D&D game is in the heads of the players, then that same 80% is in the heads of the viewers when they're watching people play D&D, which is why people enjoy them so much, is because it's not that far different from playing. You know, you're still imagining it, and you're still got these characters in your world. You don't get to make the decisions that the players get to make, but you still get to imagine the world as it's played. And I think that, you know, that's a good, I don't know, maybe I don't know, I'm giving a false percentage to it, but I think that there's a big value, a lot of joy that comes from that, imagining this world and imagining what's going on. And I think that's why people watch it. So that idea that these games are sort of, you know, the radio drama for our time, you know, I think it's really powerful, and I think that's why people enjoy it so much, and I think it's great. So Spelly says, I don't think there's that many ways to fail as a DM, and the biggest one is when players don't have fun. How to bounce back when you make a rules or a mistake or something would be neat. Yeah, that's true, and sort of how to deal with a tough situation like that. Probably mine is impatience. I get impatient, or I get, you know, I make a reaction, and I kind of wish I was a little bit calmer about it. The Craghammer arc. Yeah. Sorry, reading. So yeah, how to deal with mistakes, I think is important. Yeah. Anyway, I have to run to my game. So I want to thank all of you on Twitch for joining me and conversing about this wonderful hobby of ours. I want to thank all of you people watching on YouTube, and all of you following on Twitter, and everybody that is out there playing this game. It's a wonderful game. This prep is really helpful for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you again next week. Have a great day.